All right, so a couple of studies. So this first one, Lupus Europe, is an exercise program for patients. They actually have a YouTube channel. So if you go on YouTube and look up Lupus Europe, they have some exercise videos of exercises that they did with their patients in this study. They showed that the majority of their participants improved in I feel like saying improved in symptoms means their symptoms increased, but like their symptoms decreased. And so they improved in health overall. The second study, internet-based exercise therapy in patients with systemic lupus, very, very similar results. This was more of kind of a digital-based approach to exercise, which is actually how I work with my clients as well. They prescribed exercise to lupus patients via like a website that they had provided, and the lupus patients were responsible in doing it themselves. And so that was also assessing kind of ownership and responsibility over health in lupus patients. And again, they showed that the exercise therapy helped to decrease chronic fatigue and inflammation and joint pain in the body. And then the last one, exercise and physical activity in systemic lupus. This was a meta-analysis, which is where they took like a bunch of different studies and did a study on the different studies. So it sounds complicated, but thankfully other people do this and we can just read about it. And so what they identified was that they kind of looked at different approaches that various other studies took with lupus patients in regards to, is cardio better, or is strength training better, or yoga? And they found that low impact exercises like progressive based strength training and yoga and Pilates were more efficient at helping lupus patients decrease pain and inflammation versus high intensity things like interval training or cardio. So strength training and yoga was a little bit more progressive, a little gentler on the joints than kind of any kind of high impact cardio like running or any HIIT training. So I thought that that was interesting. So when it comes to exercising, what do we consider? Like, what's kind of the first things? And I actually have a downloadable PDF on these 5 topics. So if you go to my website, which I'll share with you all at the end, you can download the PDF, and it has a couple of other things that you can look through in there. Things to consider. Are you ready? So we assess kind of like your mental readiness for exercise, and sometimes people are just not ready, and that's okay. The modality, we just kind of talked briefly on that, cardio versus strength training. Like, which one do I do? Is it better to go like high intensity or consistency? Which is better? What about resting and recovery? How does that play a role into exercising long term? And then we'll talk about exercise intolerance. And if you think that sounds like lactose intolerance, you are correct. It's very much like that. No, don't worry. No one here is allergic to exercise. Sometimes our body just doesn't need exercise, or doesn't need as much exercise. And so I'll explain how you can navigate exercise intolerance as well. So are you ready to exercise? Our brains, our wonderful brains, were designed a very, very, very long time ago. And so our brain, although we as a civilization of humans have developed significantly over the last thousands and thousands of years, our brain still has the same like biological responses to stress, to change. And so when even if we see, okay, I'm going to exercise, I know exercise is good, it's very conducive to my goals and to my health, but oftentimes, we've all said it before, like, oh, yeah, I just, I know exercise is good for me, I know eating healthy is good, I just need to do it, right? We all say that, like, I just need to do it. And then what happens between that moment of I just need to do it and and then we don't do it. What happens kind of in that in-between moment is really not our fault, right? Our brain is programmed to kind of see this change or this new obstacle as like, that's potentially dangerous. I don't know. Emmett's brain is like, I don't know, man. This sounds dangerous. I don't think we should do this. Doesn't seem like a good idea. But the other half of your brain is like, yeah, I think it's a good idea. I think it'll help you. And it's kind of like the little angel and the devil on your shoulders. Like one's like, I don't know. And the other one's like, yeah, it's a good idea. So our brain kind of registers, and in like, I can't even remember, like it's like 0.000 something of a second, our brain immediately registers that as like dangerous, because our brain is designed to protect us, right? So if anything is kind of out of our comfort zone, it immediately registers it as dangerous. And so the best way that you can overcome that is to, one, be aware of it, right? We all, and even if you are exercising, even if you do have a regular exercise routine, you wake up some days and you're like, I don't feel like doing this, right? Because our brain is still perceiving that change as something that's like, I don't know if it's a good idea. What's wonderful though about our brain is something called neuroplasticity, is where you can actually redirect those thought patterns, and your brain lays down new neural circuit patterns to align with new thought patterns. So if the more that you kind of give into that thought of, I don't think this is a good idea, I don't want to do this doesn't seem good, the more that your brain is going to lay down circuits that support that. But you can actually interrupt that thought by first recognizing it and saying, wait a minute, this is just a thought, right? And you can interrupt that thought pattern and say, actually, exercise is very beneficial for me, and I'm going to try this. I'm going to try 5 minutes today. And your brain is going to lay down new circuits that align with that new thought of, we can try this. This is good for us. This is helpful, right? And so it is, one, just being prepared mentally and knowing that as soon as you make a decision to like exercise or make a change, your current habits, your current behavior, your current thoughts are going to try to interrupt that. So be aware, and recognize that those thoughts that say, I don't know, maybe now's not a good time. Those are just thoughts. They're simply thoughts, right? So being prepared mentally and knowing that along the way, like I said, even in your exercise journey, you're going to have those days where you're not going to feel like it. And so, what's your game plan for those days? Number 2, consult your doctor. Let your doctor know, hey, I'm going to start an exercise plan. Are there any like limitations or any kind of contraindications with the current treatment that I'm on? Is there anything I should stay away from? And it's more so just to let your doctor know. Disclaimer, I did forget to mention this at the beginning. I am not a medical doctor. I am a fitness professional, but I do like to say I do more often than not know more than your doctor does about exercise. So if you are cleared to exercise, I would highly recommend that you consult with a fitness professional, because oftentimes your doctor might not be able to give you the specifics of what you should be implementing as far as your exercise is concerned. So, but of course, they should be aware that you are starting an exercise routine, and you should make sure that you are cleared based on your treatment. And number 3, assess your barriers. So be aware of what might come up for you. Is it time? Is it motivation? Is it a lack of space or a facility? So things like, if you take your son or daughter to soccer practice on Tuesday, Thursdays, maybe don't schedule, your exercise workout on Tuesday, Thursdays, because what's going to happen is you're going to run into that time barrier, and then you're going to be like, dang it, I didn't exercise today. And, I can't do this. I'm a terrible person. I'm never going to change, right? And we quickly go down that spiral of negative self-talk. So if you can first identify what barriers might prevent you from completing your exercise routine, you can address those quickly and say, okay, well, I have this on Tuesday, Thursday evenings. I'm going to exercise on Monday, Wednesdays, and Saturdays. I'll go for a long walk or something. So just first, and be honest with yourself. If I often see people committing to these like programs that are like, an hour, hour and a half every single day, 5 to 6 days a week. You do it for 2 weeks and then you never go back. Why? Because you're exhausted. You maybe got hurt. It's a lot to keep up with. It's a huge time commitment and it's just like not feasible. And so, be really honest with yourself about what can I commit? What is my kind of container around my time? If I can do 30 minutes 3 times a week, I would much, much rather you commit to those 30 minutes 3 times a week than to be like, I'm signing up for like P90X or what's the other one, Insanity, those things that just are like so much of your time. So be honest, assess those barriers and what might come up for you when starting an exercise program. I like to use affirmations. So this is one that is really useful and helpful to me when I'm like starting a new process or a new season of life. I am willing to change and to grow. I now create a safe new future. Because the thing with change is that like our brain, like I mentioned earlier, is kind of just like immediately goes to like, this is scary, this is dangerous. And so if we can say, hey, no, it's okay, I am safe, I am creating a safe new future, it lets our nervous system know that like, hey, we don't have to freak out so much, everyone calm down, right? We don't need to go into a lupus flare up right now, like we're good, this is chill. So your nervous system very, very much communicates with your immune system. And so by letting our body know that we are safe, your immune system doesn't have to freak out as often.